Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The Lord said, "Woe to you, who build the memorials of the prophets whom your fathers killed. Consequently, you bear witness and give consent to the deeds of your ancestors. For they killed them, and you do the building. Therefore, the wisdom of God said, I will send them prophets and apostles. Some of them they will kill and persecute, in order that this generation might be charged with the blood of all the prophets, shed since the foundation of the world, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who died between the altar and the temple building. Yes, I tell you, this generation will be charged with their blood. Woe to you, scholars of the law! You have taken away the key of knowledge. You yourselves did not enter, and you stopped those trying to enter." When Jesus left, the scribes and Pharisees began to act with hostility toward him and to interrogate him about many things. But they were plotting to catch him, something he might say. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. One of the common phrases that you will hear people say in our modern age is you will hear people say things like, they have friends who don't go to church or do not believe in God, but they are more Christian than most Christians. Sometimes people will say things like that. What they mean is that the person is a really good person, more Christian. Another thing that you will hear in our modern culture is there's this idea that basically all religions are equal. All religions are the same. And not even just all religions, but all cultures are equal and the same. That's why often in schools today you hear about colonialism. Obviously, colonialism, there are some bad aspects of colonialism when it's just people trying to take over other lands. But often in our modern age, in our relativistic age, people think colonialism is wrong not because people were taking over other people's lands, but that they were trying to bring their cultural values to another culture. They were imposing their values, is how it is described. And the basic idea there is that it is wrong to impose or even to suggest your values on another person because all cultures are equal in value. All of them are equally worthy of respect and trust. There's no difference that cultural values make in the worthiness of one culture to another. I'm not sure if I'm making this clear. But we as Christians, we don't believe that. We believe that Christianity really does have something to offer the world, and that it was a great act of charity for the Christians from Europe to try to spread their Christian culture throughout the world. Obviously, there are times where it was done improperly. Just because they were Christians doesn't mean they weren't sinners. And so oftentimes this task, it became depraved or perverted. But in principle, there is nothing wrong with trying to spread the good news to another culture. And we in our modern age, we really have a hard time understanding that. And that's why you'll hear people say things like that. That this person is even more Christian than somebody else. It's this idea that really your religious ideas and theology doesn't make a difference. Remember when I was in seminary, I was taking this class with a priest I really admired, and somebody asked him about that phrase, about people who had never been baptized, or people who weren't Christians, and how oftentimes they seem to be even better Christians than others. And what the priest said really, it stuck with me. I hope that it will stick with you. Is he said that we in our modern age, we take for granted just how much our world is influenced by Christianity. Just how much our culture is influenced by the graces of God that have been dispensed throughout the culture through the sacraments of the church. If the church did not exist, the world would look very different. And even people who do not claim to be Christian, they can't help but be influenced by the Christian heritage that is embedded everywhere in our culture. And even many people who leave the church or leave faith in God, even many of them in mysterious ways, they were raised in the church. So they have the graces of baptism within them. And we can never know just how much that influences how they live and how they think. An example of this, is this idea about slavery. So many people like to say that during the Middle Ages, right, the church was at fault because the church never condemned slavery. And even in the Bible, St. Paul tells slaves to be obedient to their masters. And people act as if Christianity was promoting slavery. In fact, what really happened is that slavery probably would have never been eradicated from Europe and the United States if it hadn't been for Christianity. The idea that every single human being is made in the image of God, and therefore cannot be seen as a piece of property or an instrument. Slavery has always been a part of the world, and it is only the influence of Christian theology that has caused people to want to eradicate slavery. That's just one example. Or how we think about science. I was talking with the Wabash students last night at our formation night, and we were talking about the influence of Christianity on science. That in many ancient cultures, people used to look at the world and they saw it as mysterious and random. They thought that the world was controlled by God or by gods or spirits, or that in order to control the world, you had to practice magic or something like that. And it's only with the coming of Christianity that we recognize that everything was created by a rational creator. And therefore the world can literally be understood. It can be interpreted. It can even be predictable. We can discover the laws that are embedded in nature. And that's what the entire scientific pursuit is based on. This idea that the world is ordered and discoverable. We can truly understand it. We don't have to have magic, or we don't have to please the gods in order to have influence on nature. Some of these things we take for granted, and I bring this up because a very clear example of this in our history is this feast day we are celebrating today, the Feast of the North American Martyrs. Often when we talk about the North American martyrs, we can get caught up in their martyrdoms. And indeed, it is inspirational to hear about their courage and how they endured those terrible martyrdoms, perhaps the worst tortures that any martyrs have ever faced in the history of the church. But what I would like to simply point out this morning is the way that they lived before their martyrdoms and the way that they described the culture they encountered. The Jesuit missionaries who came to North America in the 15 and 1600s, they came from a very long and developed Christian civilization in Europe. And they were surprised at what they found in North America, where Christianity had not been able to dig deep its roots. And they encountered a truly pagan civilization. And they were shocked at what they found, that there really was no real learning. They didn't have medicine and doctors and scientists. Instead, you had magicians and witch doctors. There was no real learning in that sense. They were shocked at how the Native Americans, how they not only treated some Europeans, but how they treated each other. That there was such a lack of respect for human dignity. Oftentimes, even within their own tribes, the way that some of the Native Americans treated each other. The Jesuits said that when they arrived to the land, they found a land possessed by the devil. That's how some of them described it. And that's not a claim on all Native Americans or anything like that. It's just pointing out that what we might have imagined, that maybe they came and they thought, oh wow, these people are just like us, right? So many different ways. That's not how they described it at all. They found a people in desperate need of God and of the church and of the good news that they had to bring. All cultures are not the same. All religions are not the same. And that's not a matter of anybody saying that as a matter of pride or arrogance. It's just simply a fact that many people in our modern age have forgotten. We should be proud of our Christian heritage, and especially proud of those courageous men and women of church history who gave their lives to give that good news to other cultures and bring about that tremendous change, bringing God's kingdom to a land possessed by the devil.